When the students arrived at the Whistler Hotel with Professor Murdock, they couldn't get into the large VIP room, which was the only hall big enough to accommodate all 70 of them. Mike Tripp was embarrassed because he didn't have VIP access, and Penny Sutherland's call to cook was rejected. They were about to give up when Kevin handed his card to one of the employees. She was shocked for a moment and couldn't speak. Finally, she asked, "Sir, is this card really yours?" "What's wrong?" Kevin frowned as he replied. "This is the card Mr. Cook gave me. Is there a problem with it?" The concierge didn't answer Kevin's question right away. She walked around the counter and handed him his card as she explained. "I'm sorry, sir. I didn't know you had a VIP card. Please accept my apologies for this misunderstanding." The students who heard this thought that it was a joke. Had Kevin stolen the card from the Jones family? That wasn't possible, they thought, because Kevin's in-laws weren't aristocratic enough to have one.
"So then where did Kevin get this card from?" Luther asked.
Lionel started to question him too. "Kevin, this card has got to be..." Before he could finish, Kevin asked the concierge, "Can you please open the private room now?" "Of course. We'll take care of that right away. Everything will be ready in just a moment," she replied with cheerful promptness as she turned around to send someone upstairs to prepare the room. What surprised her was that out of all of the well-dressed students, it was the shabby one who didn't look like he belonged there who actually had the VIP card. She felt lucky to have a chance to remedy the situation before Kevin was offended. The head server came down a few minutes later to lead the group up to the top floor. When they got to the VIP room, he handed Kevin's card back to him and wished him a pleasant meal.
"How did you ever get lucky enough to find a card like that?" Mike asked him in a sarcastic tone.
Kevin's classmates thought Mike was right. After all, how could a good-for-nothing like him have gotten one of those cards legitimately? "Well, why don't you go out and find one yourself?" Kevin said coldly. He just didn't understand why everyone was still making fun of him right after he'd helped them all out. But then he told himself that it wouldn't matter anyway if he fought back. After all, they weren't even on the same level as him. Mike gave up and walked over to the entrance to ask the waiters to bring some menus for the group. But because Professor Murdock was there, everyone hesitated to place their orders.
"Why don't you order for us, Professor?"
Mike offered graciously. "We're not in school, Mike. Don't be shy just because I'm here. This is supposed to be fun," Professor Murdock responded as she gently gave him back the menu. Penny sat quietly off to the side and didn't have the slightest intention of ordering. Kevin was completely left out and nobody even bothered to give him a menu. Suddenly someone shouted,
"Wow, they actually have a... You can't get that anywhere else around here."
Kevin spat his water out when he heard his classmate say that. It was the same wine that Jason had ordered for all of the tables when the Jones family was celebrating Lily's contract with Williams Media. At $20,000 a bottle, the exclusive French wine was so expensive that they all had to chip in to help pay the bill.
"It's my treat. Get whatever you want,"
Mike proudly declared. He had no idea what he was getting himself into. Even Penny gave him a strange look when she heard him say that. When the food and drinks were carried out to the tables, Mike stood up to give everyone a toast. As he raised his glass, he glanced down at the bill.
"What the hell is this? $375,000? $300,000 for 15 bottles of wine?"
Mike said to himself. Somehow he managed to look calm as he processed all of this. Then Lionel made an announcement. "Hey, everyone, listen to me. Take a look at this wonderful feast. Who else would be this generous? I think we should just elect Mike student leader right now so we can save ourselves the time tomorrow in class." The students all seemed to agree with him. But they weren't fools, and they knew exactly why Mike was treating them. Mike was very happy to see this. At least the expense would be worth it. He waved his hand and acted like it was no big deal.
"Don't make such a fuss over me. After all, Professor Murdock has the final say in the election. I'm just treating the class so we can all get to know each other better." "Don't be so modest, Mike. Who's better qualified to be our class leader?" Luther chimed in.
The rest of the students just sat there quietly and watched the show that the three of them were putting on. But they didn't want to seem ungrateful, so they were willing to go along with the idea of electing Mike to the position.
Since no one has any objections, then how could I decline? But let's just call it a temporary position. If anyone feels that I'm not carrying my weight, just say so, Mike declared as he raised his glass to toast his classmates.
Professor Murdock stayed out of the discussion and quietly observed her students as they drank their wine and socialized with each other. Meanwhile, Penny just sat quietly by the window, nursing her glass demurely. Her classmates were too intimidated by her to go up and talk to her. While this was going on, Mike took Lionel aside and asked him to go down to his car and bring back a red gift box that he'd left in the trunk. Lionel came back a few minutes later and handed it to his friend. Then Mike carried the box over to Professor Murdock and told her,
"Please accept this small gift from me, Professor."
His classmates all started to whisper to each other. Now they could tell that Mike had planned this all along. They'd let him buy his way into the position as student leader. On the other hand, who would have wanted to pay for 15 bottles of wine at $20,000 a pop? Of course, they were correct. Mike was definitely planning to run for the position, so he'd spent a lot of money on his gift for their professor. Professor Murdock glanced at the gift box very stoically. "Mike, I appreciate your good intentions, but faculty members are not allowed to accept gifts from students," she pointed out very seriously. "It was already very expensive for you to treat your classmates to dinner tonight, so I think you should keep this gift for yourself."
"Please, understand it's just a small token, not a gift," Mike replied with a flattering smile. "Why don't you just take a look inside before you decide?"
"I'm sorry, Mike, but it's just not appropriate," she began to explain. But before she could finish what she was saying, Mike opened the box. There was a cream-colored pill inside. Everyone gasped when they saw it. They'd all heard about what had happened at the Pearl family's auction house, and they knew a power pill was worth a fortune. So what was this herbal med and how much could it possibly be worth? Professor Murdock was absolutely speechless, and she stared at the pill in amazement. When Mike handed her the box, she thought it was some kind of expensive jewelry, maybe a necklace. But this was quite a surprise. After all, medicinal pills were getting to be a very popular item, even among the faculty members at the school. Professor Murdock had been at a plateau in her physical and mental development for a while now, and could definitely use a boost to move up to the next level. The room was absolutely silent. Someone suddenly asked, "Mike, what kind of medicinal pill did you prepare for Professor Murdock? What does it do?"
"A really good friend of my father's gave it to me. When I was accepted in the school for the healing arts, my father passed it along to me," Mike said with a proud smile. "According to my father's friend, this is an augmentation pill and it can help you really increase your power and mental focus."
There was a huge commotion as they all started chattering. Had they heard him right? They knew that Professor Murdock had to be very well trained already, so this would really make a difference for her. The students could only dream about something like this. Mike had really given their professor something very valuable. Professor Murdock was in a state of shock. She'd only read about the augmentation pill and its physical and mental benefits, but she'd never actually seen one before. If this was really an augmentation pill, then she had no choice but to accept it from Mike. The heck with the school's rules and regulations. The way Professor Murdock saw it, if she gave Mike a recommendation in exchange for the pill, then it wasn't really a gift. With her connections, there were a lot of strings she could pull to help him. Her mind was spinning with all sorts of ridiculous ideas.
"Please accept it, Professor Murdock,"
Mike said with a smile. Of course, he knew exactly what she was thinking. "Since you insist, I really have no choice," she said as she hid her excitement and took the box from Mike. Just then, they were interrupted by a loud voice. "Professor Murdock, you can't take that pill." Everyone was stunned and turned to see who had spoken. It was Kevin. He quickly walked over to Professor Murdock and closely examined the pill in the box.
"Kevin, what are you up to now?"
Mike asked him unhappily. It hadn't been easy for him to get Professor Murdock to accept the pill, But now this jerk was going to ruin everything. Professor Murdock, this isn't an augmentation pill. I can guarantee that if you take this pill, it will definitely do you a lot of harm. Kevin informed her very seriously.
Kevin, you have no idea what you're talking about.
Do you actually think my father's friend would have lied to him? Mike shouted. Mike, pay attention to your tone, Professor Murdock reminded him.
I'm sorry, Professor Murdock, but this guy's pissing me off.
Mike sneered at Kevin and continued his rant.
I understand what's going on. You're jealous that I can get a pill like this and you can't. It's just that I'm from a better family than you are, and I'm also richer and more handsome than you. That has to be disappointing.
You think you're more handsome than me? Everyone knows that just isn't true. Kevin teased him.
What do you mean by that?
Mike retorted as he slammed his fist on the table. Don't be angry, Mike. This whole thing really isn't worth it. Lionel tried to persuade his friend. Then Luther tried to calm him down.
Relax, Mike. You're absolutely right. Kevin must be jealous of you. That's why I said there's something wrong with this pill.
You still don't understand, do you? Both you and your father were cheated by someone. This isn't an augmentation pill at all, Kevin told them bluntly. An augmentation pill is more of a light blue color. Plus it contains some floral ingredients which gives it a beautiful fragrance. Take another look at the medicinal pill you just gave our professor, Kevin continued. It's obviously the wrong color and has no fragrance at all. They were all stunned to hear him say this. Even Penny reacted and stared keenly at Kevin. Mike thought about what Kevin had said and his frown turned into a vicious sneer.
I really didn't expect you to go this far just out of jealousy. Let me ask you something. Have you ever actually seen an augmentation pill with your own eyes? Mike asked him. What makes you think you know so much about them?
Ignoring Mike's questions, Kevin turned around and looked at Professor Murdock. Professor, if you believe me, you'll give this pill back to Mike. But please don't blame him for it. After all, he and his father were both deceived. But if you don't believe me, then go right ahead and take the pill. Not only had Kevin seen an augmentation pill before, but he'd actually made one and taken it too. He decided not to argue with Mike because he didn't want to stoop to his level. As they say, let sleeping dogs lie. There was no way he could convince Mike he'd made a mistake. And Kevin couldn't slip a real augmentation pill into the box right now anyway, so the best he could do was to warn Professor Murdock. After all, she'd already gone through years of training and study, so there's no way she'd be tempted to take the pill. Or would she?
Please subscribe to the Pocket FM YouTube channel and press the bell icon for instant notification. Check out our channel for more such exciting shows.